The TOPS Lab Crash Data Retrieval Facility is a convenient web-based system for extracting Wisconsin Department of Transportation WisDOT DT4000 crash report information. The facility provides information on all reportable crashes in Wisconsin from 1994 to the present year. Information on the location of the crash, vehicles involved, and general crash attributes are available. For crashes prior to 2017, when we changed over to the new form, a legacy data file translates the new elements, the DT4000 crash elements, into the equivalent MV4000 elements. That was the data that was available from 1994 to 2016. Accessing the crash data. Finding the crash data retrieval facility. You can go to the WisTransPortal homepage. The URL is below, so it's http://transportal.cee.wisc.edu. Click on the web applications, select Wisconsin Crash Data Analysis Tools. This will prompt you to enter your username and password. We will have sections later on that will go through this in depth as kind of a live demo. This is what it looks like. So you can see here on the screen there's a login information. In the corner up here, you can see the data services, data products, web applications, documentation where these videos will be listed, WisDOT traffic video, and developer resources. You can see the quick links in the rectangle on the right-hand side of the screen. This will take you to the major data elements for the system. There is crash data, which we'll be talking about today, traffic data, which includes the minute feeds from the volume, speed, and occupancy of the loop detectors on the freeway systems, lane closure data from the lane closure system, traffic incidents from Intercad and others, traffic video, storm report, and then the 511 winter road services. So web applications here, that'll take you to all of this information here. So you can see under safety data, there's the Wisconsin Crash Data Analysis Tools. You also see community maps below that. We'll go just a little bit into what that is. You see all the work zone information, the incident data, winter maintenance, traffic data, and below. How do you know what kind of access level you have? And then what do you have, what does that mean? So crash data access depends on account access level. That's found in the bottom left-hand corner in parentheses. So you can see here, this person, Bo, was logged in and it says internal DT4000. Information can be found on the Crash Data Tools help page about what that means. So if you can see below there, number 5 is internal DT4000. So Bo has access to all data elements and access to all crash report files. Because of how the access level goes in our memorandum of understanding with WisDOT, we have broken access levels up into these 6 different categories. The first one is a viewer. It has limited access to the data. They can see the data, but they can't download it as a CSV file or anything else. External data has access to the data only, so it has access to the CSV data files. It excludes any internal database identifier, so this would be the crash number or the accident number. Internal data has access to all those data elements, so it includes that information about the accident number, crash number. External DT4000 has access to all the data elements. It has access to crash report files, excluded the restricted reports. A restricted report is anything under state statute that involves a juvenile with certain citations that can be used for criminal proceedings. So if a juvenile was involved in a crash and was given a citation for some sort of criminal issues, that report will be restricted and you'll see an X next to that, that file. Internal DT4000 has access to all data elements and access to all crash report files. And the administrator has access to all data and crash report files and administration of user accounts. So these are the 6 different levels. So if you're having trouble being able to look at one versus the other, you might want to look to see what your access level is, and then you can send comments back to crash-data@topslab.wisc.edu to change that access level. So important pieces of things to look at when you get to the Crash Data Tools homepage. So when you pull it up, it looks like the bottom part of the screen here. You can see 2 things in the box, that blue box that says Crash Data Retrieval Facility. This is where you can query and download Wisconsin crash data from the database. You can also see information about the version and when that version came out. There's also Crash reports retrieval facility. So once you've done the data retrieval facility, you know what reports you're interested in, you can click on that and be able to just download the reports that you're interested in. On here too, you can see some important links. There's a help page that has some good information and contacts as well too. The help page gives you information about different types of documentation and then where else to go to in a little bit. There are two yellow boxes that you can see here, the darker yellow, so you can see it's a version number, and then you can see what was the update. And if you click on that red show details, it'll show you what's going on. This will change over time. So what you see here on the screen may not be what you see when you log on to it today, because we're constantly updating the system and being able to look at it. The lighter yellow right below that gives you information about, is this data finalized or not, and then thinking about how that goes a little bit. So you can see that in this set, which was done in January, it has 2019, the 2017 crash data elements were finalized, and there was preliminary crash data for 2018 and 2019. Remembering that the preliminary data just means that it can be still updated and changed over time. So before you finalize anything, you might want to just check to see if any other data has come in. A user guide is very helpful. It is available in multiple locations on the website. It is available on the Crash Data Tools homepage, as well as on the data results page. It gives you information about the elements. So you can see that on the kind of second page here, you can see the section 1 DT4000 crash data elements. It'll show you the access control there. So that's the first one. It says the degree that access to abutting land is fully, partially, or not controlled by a public authority. And then below that in the bullets, you can see the attributes. So the attributes here for access control are full, part, or no control. You can also see agency case, agency name, and all this information is on there. It also says on the first page kind of what is a reportable crash and what the information is there, so you can go ahead and use this. This is really helpful if you are doing crash data analysis for other folks and you want to provide them some more information. Whenever we give out data requests, we give them out this information as well too. To understand how law enforcement is interpreting elements and attributes, you want to go to a couple different things. So we've talked about before, so analysts could first look up that crash data user guide that we saw on the previous page. And then it's also good to look at the data dictionary or the F2 help to kind of better understand it. So as you're looking at your data and analyzing it, if an element seems a little bit off in how you might interpret it, you might want to think about looking at it to say, okay, how does this look a little bit? It might be good to also go back to that MUC standards, that Model Minimum Uniform Crash Criteria that we mentioned in an earlier section, to kind of think about, what is it supposed to be from the national standard. We're continuously trying to improve the crash data, so it's not going to just be kind of one moment in time. We're trying to always better look to see how we can get better consistency and completeness and accuracy from the law enforcement. Final and preliminary crash data status. So a couple of things to think about here. The DT4000 replaced the MV4000 crash reports as of January 1st, 2017. At the time of this recording, we've had the 2017-2018 finalized, and then we have preliminary 2019. Multi-year queries. So with any of our data analysis from an engineering perspective, we usually like to look at trends. So not just at 1 year, but over multiple years, so 3 to 5 years. So multiple year queries, including the data before 2017, have what's called a legacy data file. It takes the DT4000 data and translates it back to the MV4000 equivalent. So it's a way to be able to combine those data sets together to get that longer term view of the system until we have 5 years over in the new system a little bit. The recommendation is to use the DT4000 elements whenever possible. This definitely knows we have more information on the DT4000 side of things, and it's a better accurate assessment of the crashes. So if you're looking at trend analysis and you want to look at those kind of multi-years, use the MV4000s. But maybe when you're looking at trying to diagnose a problem that's on the roadway, go ahead and look at the new DT4000 elements to kind of have a better idea of distraction or the sequence of events that we've talked about before. Crash data is current through 2018. So a lot of times we get this question about what is final and preliminary crash data. This was a bigger issue when we didn't have as many edit checks in the previous MV4000 data elements or data set. But with the DT4000, there are a plethora of data checks before the data gets submitted into the crash database, and then the crash database is checking things as well too. We still do have what's called a final data set and preliminary data set. The final data set, it means at a moment in time, it is then stopped. So even if an amendment or information comes in after that, it will not be included. So once that final data set has been created, the extract has been created, that is what the system of record will be for the crash data, the WisTransPortal crash database. The preliminary crash data is good and it's very accurate. It has been updated on a daily basis, but that is still subject to amendments or changes along with time. So you're kind of thinking about that a little bit, just knowing that there's a little bit of a caveat there, which would be why there is a checkbox on the first part of this, as you can see at the bottom of the screen here, that says check to include preliminary data with your query. Again, this is just so that you understand that when you look at preliminary data, that the data could change over time. Overview of a crash data query. So this is what we mentioned before. So when you first bring it up here, you'll see a data source on the right-hand side. If you're going to look at the legacy data, you want to click on that MV4000. If you want to look at 2017 and newer data, you want to click on the DT4000 data source. You'll see there once you click on it, there's a little box or a little kind of highlighted tab above that to let you know what you're working in. So here we've clicked MV4000 and you can see the blue line that says you are currently working with the Wisconsin MV4000 crash data elements and attributes, along with a help button there that if you want to get into. So you first choose that data source. When you come onto the system, it's going to default to the MV4000 for right now. Okay. You want to click on the crash data retrieval facility, and that'll bring you up to this page here. You want to select your date range of what you're wanting to look at. So are you looking at 2015 to 2019? Are you looking at 1994 to 2019? Just understanding that the more data that you're bringing back, probably the longer it's going to take in the system to bring them back. So if you try to bring back all crashes in the state of Wisconsin from 1994 to 2019, it may take a very long time to bring it back. You can also select date ranges of selected months if you would like to. So if you wanted to look at all winter conditions, so October, November, December for the past 5 years, you can go ahead and click on that there, and then that would bring you back just October, November, December crash data for the years that you mentioned in the information above. You then want to select your crash location. So down below here, you can see below it here, it says number 2, select a crash location. You can either do it by region, which is your WisDOT region offices, your county, or your municipality. Thinking about your municipality, you want to make sure you capture it correctly. So with a parenthesis C, that means the city of, versus the parenthesis T, which is the town or township of. So for example, Adams has both a city and a township. So you want to be aware of what you're using at that moment in time. So after we've done that, we're then going to decide if we want to exclude deer or include deer crashes. So a lot of times it's been looked at it to say we can't always control where the deer are crossing. So from an engineering perspective, maybe we want to exclude the deer crashes to maybe just focus on more of the how drivers are driving that roadway or some of the human factors associated with it. The next thing you want to do is filter by crash location. Usually we're going to have just the intersection and non-intersection marked here, but again, it's up to you if you're also looking at parking lot and private property. So when you come up, it'll have the intersection and non-intersection checked, the other two not checked, but if you want to include them, you can. And then you can filter by crash severity. So are you just looking at your Ks and As, so your fatals and suspected major injuries, or are you looking at all of them? If you do not have them checked, it means you're looking at all of them. You can see with each one of these sections, there is a help button next to it. And if you click on that help, it'll bring you to that part of what does that actually, what does crash injury severity mean? What are we looking at there? With this first query, the basic query, you can also filter by some crash flags. So you can look at alcohol, passenger cars, bicyclists, school buses, truck, trailer, and tow. You also have the ability to either or the crash flag, so alcohol or drug use, or you can also have the operator be an and statement. So I want to look for crashes that involve both an alcohol flag and a passenger car. So if I do that, that's going to be looking for crashes that have passenger cars in them as well as an alcohol flag, versus if I did the or operator, that's going to look for and give me back all crashes that have a passenger car or an alcohol flag. And then after that, I would retrieve the data. The crash data query results page has lots of good information in it here. So you can see here it comes back as these yellow, lighter yellow and yellow rows of the information. Well, the first thing you'll notice is that right under the crash data retrieval facility version 2.0.3, again, depending on what you're looking at there, you'll see a box that has a lot of information in it. This is the SQL query. This is what it is searching in the database. This is something that I recommend as a best practice, that if you are downloading this data, you then also copy that SQL query and put it into your Excel file or your CSV file as well too, just to keep track of what you were querying at that point in time. So it kind of looks like this. It basically is a way to query the crashes. So you're looking at selecting that dash, that star means I want to bring back all of the data elements. It says where it's looking at, so it's looking at crash production, the combined GIS. It then tells you the parameters for that search. So it's looking at a crash date between January 2018 and December of 2018. Then you see the rest of that, the where statement that has an and, a municipal code of 5355, and where either an alcohol was yes or a drug flag was yes, and that the accident location is in the intersection. So that's kind of how that provides that information a little bit. It's the city of Beloit, where drugs or alcohol were present, and it was located at a intersection. So then further down on that page, we kind of blew it up here so you can see this information. There's some good things to kind of think about here. So there is a blue button that says view additional crash data. There's the green button, the download button there that says view the crash report form. If that is a restricted form or it's not available, you'll see an X there, a red X. And then if it is a restricted form, you'll see that little kind of lock on that screen a little bit. When you're looking at this kind of rows of information here, there's a couple things to note here. Because this rows could go on and on if this is a large multi-vehicle crash, because there is one row per crash, we are only showing you the first two vehicles, first two units in the crash. So if there is a 3 vehicle or more information, we're not going to see on this row of sheets here all that information. But you can get that information if you click on this kind of white information button there. So when you click on it, it shows the crash data. It gives you by your crash data elements, your vehicle data elements, your personal data elements, any factors, objects, or enforcement. What's nice here is, again, it will show you the information on all vehicles inside that for that crash, not just the first 2 ones. So it gives you a lot of information there. You'll see at the top there, you can go back to the results page, you can do a new query, you can exit, you can print this, which is sometimes helpful, as well as being able to go right to the actual crash report form if you wanted to look at things a little bit more in depth. The second one is for downloading of crash reports. And again, this is what we went over before. There's the green button for reviewing the crash report form, and X means the crash report's not available. And then the little lock is if it's restricted. If you see that a crash report is not available, you can always send an email to that crash data at topslab.wis.edu to be able to ask and say it's not available. We can look through. Sometimes it might just be because it was something was wrong from how that was sent in, or maybe it just got stuck in staging somewhere. So feel free to always ask us if that's not available. On the information there, right, we kind of default to the rows per page of 20, but you can change that if you want to look at that page and get down to 50, 100, 500, or 1,000. We order it by location to begin with, but you can also change the order based on date, severity, type of crash, manner of collision, or document number. Column list. This is one that's pretty interesting and kind of one that I find that people don't always kind of look at and see a little bit. As I mentioned, that there is one row per crash. While there's lots of elements with that, we've kind of changed it a little bit to show, not all of the elements, not all of those columns are shown on everything. So this column list shows you what type of columns are being shown there. So to begin with, it says general purpose. This is usually what we give out when we are asked for crash data request. But here you can see as soon as you click on that down button there, you can see that there's a condensed version that has even kind of a lesser information that might be helpful. Expanded, as well as classic general and classic expanded. You can also customize it as well too. So if you're wanting to look at just certain elements and you kind of constantly be able to do that, you can customize it here. So you can start with a certain source and then be able to add it over or remove it or move it up or down based on your whatever your needs are. So some folks have kind of a set template on their maybe pivot table with an Excel to be able to do this. So they want their list to kind of always show the exact elements kind of in the same order every single time. So they kind of set up their own list to be able to do that. If you do it here on this page, it'll create a temporary column list for this session. If you want to save it, there's an ability to save that column list for use across the session. So that's important to be able to look at it as well too.